When you see people bowing down in prayer, something profound is happening, not outside but within. The simple act of lowering one's head is not submission to another being. It is a reminder that the vastness of existence cannot be grasped by the human mind. When one kneels, it is not about religion, it is about reverence. To bow is to say, I am small before this creation. Whether one calls it God, Allah or by any other name, the essence is the same, to dissolve the I that stands between you and the boundless. Every prayer when done with sincerity is not a demand. It is a way of aligning oneself with the rhythm of life. The moment you touch your forehead to the ground, you are saying, let me be humble enough to receive. Because only an empty vessel can be filled, feet. True prayer does not happen in a mosque, temple or church. It happens in the stillness of one's being. When your ego becomes quiet, every breath becomes a form of worship. If you watch with awareness, you will see that in every sincere act of devotion, there is beauty, there is grace and there is surrender. And in surrender there's freedom, the freedom from the burden of being separate from the source of life itself. When a human being bows down, it is often misunderstood as a gesture of weakness or surrender to someone superior. But in truth, it is not about submission to another person or power. It is an acknowledgement of something immense that lies beyond the boundaries of our limited knowing. When one bends, one is not falling, one is rising inwardly. The act of bowing softens the ego. It is an expression that says, I am not the center of this universe, I am just a small part of this vast existence. In that recognition, there is grace, there is beauty, and there is balance. Bowing has been present in every spiritual tradition, not because someone demanded it, but because it naturally arises when the heart becomes… When you see the stars, when you hear the rhythm of the ocean, or when you feel the pulse of life in another being, a certain reverence wells up within you. To bow is to respond to that experience of awe. It is a silent way of saying, I see the magnificence of what is. Whether one bows before a symbol, a direction, or the very earth itself, it is the same, an offering of gratitude for being allowed to exist within this mysterious creation. In that simple gesture, one's arrogance melts away. The head that carries all opinions, judgments and pride touches the ground. And in that moment, something fundamental shifts. The mind that seeks to dominate begins to listen, the heart that strives to be right begins to… The human being for a brief moment becomes aligned with the pulse of life itself. This is not an act of defeat, but of awakening, an act of remembering that the highest dimension of life can only be touched when one is willing to bow before it. Prayer in its purest form is not bound by name, language or tradition. It is not the property of any one faith or belief system. It is the longing of the human heart reaching toward the infinite. Whether one stands, sits or bows, the essence of prayer remains the same. It is a yearning to connect with something far greater than oneself. When a person prays with genuine feeling, it does not matter what words are spoken or which direction they face. What matters is the depth of sincerity and the openness of the heart. When this longing becomes real, it dissolves the boundaries that divide people, because at that moment the soul does not know religion, it only knows devotion. Across the world, people may call upon the divine in countless ways, through chants, silence, music or tears, yet all are reaching toward the same vastness. The divine does not belong to any scripture, temple or holy place. It exists in every breath, in every grain of existence. When prayer becomes inclusive, it ceases to be a ritual of belonging to one group and becomes an act of belonging to life itself. The true essence of prayer is not to claim truth, but to experience it directly, beyond doctrine, beyond words, beyond identity. When you observe people from different paths praying, you may notice the outer differences. But if you look deeper, the inner movement is the same. A movement of surrender, of love, of seeking connection. This universality of prayer is what unites humanity at the core. When the heart bows, there is no Hindu, no Muslim, no Christian. There is only a being seeking to touch the sacred. And in that seeking, there is an unspoken reminder, the divine does not divide, the human mind does. When prayer arises from deep sincerity, it is no longer a mechanical act. It becomes a living connection with the very fabric of existence. Sincerity means that every word, every breath here carries truth. It is not about asking for things, but about opening oneself fully to what is. When the heart prays without pretension, it naturally tunes itself to the rhythm of life. In that moment, prayer is no longer something you do, it becomes the way you are. Just as a river flows effortlessly toward the ocean, a sincere heart flows effortlessly toward the divine. This alignment is not created by effort but by honesty. When there is no deception, no performance, only pure intention. A sincere prayer does not seek to change the world.
It seeks to change the one who is praying.
It softens the ego, dissolves inner resistance and brings clarity to perception. When a person prays genuinely, they are no longer trying to control life, they are learning to trust it. In that trust, a profound harmony begins to emerge. The body relaxes, the mind quiets and awareness deepens. It is as if the entire being starts breathing in rhythm with the universe. Such a state cannot be forced or faked. It blossoms naturally when the heart is true. The energy of sincerity carries a certain fragrance. It touches everything around it. When one prays sincerely, even nature responds. There is a subtle alignment between the inner and outer worlds, as though existence itself listens. This is the beauty of real prayer. It doesn't separate you from life, it merges you with it. In that merging, life begins to guide you, support you and flow through you effortlessly. Sincerity transforms prayer from mere words into a bridge between the human and the eternal. True worship is not a performance of words or rituals. It is the silence that arises when the mind becomes… When there is no noise of thought, no chatter of desire, no weight of memory, that is when the sacred reveals itself. In the quietness of being, one does not need to speak or ask, because everything that needs to be known is already present. Real worship is not an activity you do at a certain time. It is the state of consciousness where the boundary between you and existence begins to fade. When there is stillness, you don't pray for blessings. You simply become a part of the blessedness that is already everywhere. Rituals have their place. They help the distracted mind focus and create a sense of devotion. But if the ritual remains only on the surface, it becomes mechanical. True worship begins when the ritual ends, when you are no longer reciting words but are simply aware, utterly present. The stillness that follows genuine prayer is the space where the divine enters. It is not something you can hear with your ears or see with your eyes. It is something you feel in the very core of your being. In that silence, there is no separation. The worshipper and the worship become one. When the ego quiets down, worship becomes effortless. You don't need to prove your devotion. You don't need to convince the divine of your faith. Your stillness itself becomes the offering. In that inner quiet, you begin to experience life as sacred, every moment as holy. The rustle of the leaves, the sound of the wind, the beating of your own heart all become hymns in the temple of existence. This is worship that no temple can contain and no words can describe. The worship that happens when the mind bows in stillness before the mystery of life. Surrender is not defeat, it is the ultimate freedom. Most people think that to surrender means to give up control or to become weak, but in truth, surrender is the release of the false idea that we ever had control in the first place. The human mind constantly struggles to shape life according to its limited understanding, but existence is far too vast to be managed by one small intellect. When you truly surrender, you stop fighting with life, you begin to flow with it. In that flowing, there is an ease, a grace, a sense of lightness that no achievement can bring. Surrender is not submission to another will, it is dissolving into the greater intelligence that governs everything. The ego, which constantly says I and mine, is the barrier that keeps us separated from the boundless. It builds walls of fear, pride and control, always trying to protect an identity that doesn't truly exist. When one begins to surrender, these walls start to crumble. The sense of separateness fades and a deeper awareness arises. A knowing that there is no me and a life, there is only life. This state of being is not about losing yourself, but about realizing that you were never separate to begin with. In surrender, the river merges with the ocean. The drop realizes it was never apart from the sea. When surrender happens, life becomes effortless. What once felt like struggle now feels like rhythm. What once felt like burden now feels like dance. This is the liberation that all spiritual paths point toward. Not the gaining of something new, but the dropping of what was false. In surrender, there is no fear of loss, no anxiety about the future because the one who worries no longer exists. The current of existence carries you, supports you and moves you in perfect harmony with the whole. That is the silent power of surrender, the doorway through which the human becomes divine. So when you watch someone bow in prayer, do not see it through the lens of religion or ritual. See it as a profound moment of connection between the finite and the infinite. In that gentle act of humility lies the secret of life itself. Every gesture of reverence, every breath of sincerity, every drop of surrender, they are not about worshipping something outside, but awakening something within. If we can live with that same spirit of prayer, not just in sacred places, but in every moment of our lives, then every action becomes worship, every word becomes a mantra, and every breath becomes a celebration of existence. Life itself becomes a temple, and the divine is no longer something we seek. It becomes the air we breathe, the ground we walk, and the stillness we carry within. To bow is to remember, we are not here to conquer life, we are here to embrace it. When the heart bows, the divine rises within. And in that rising, the human being becomes truly alive, not as a separate fragment of creation, but as a living expression of the sacred whole.